Our first question for tonight is, why do some teachers say that you can still hear even in fourth jhana? Can we infer that they have not experienced jhana themselves?
Difficult to know. Other teachers, I don't know the teacher you're referring to. It's difficult to know what someone else is experiencing in their meditation. Sure, when they describe what they've experienced, that gives you some understanding. But it's really for them to know, for you to know your mind and your meditation, and for them to know theirs. So fourth jhana in the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path is considered the deepest state of samadhi, where equanimity and mindfulness is at its purest. So it's certainly possible for you to ignore all kinds of sense contact, let go of the body and the sense contact. But it depends on the person, the practitioner. Like they say, the greatest practitioners, the arahants, have mastery of their mind. Someone like Ajahn Chah or any of the other arahants that I've met and had the good fortune to meet, train with, practice with, they say these people can enter fourth jhana and leave fourth jhana from moment to moment. That means they're so good at it. They're so skilled at it. One moment they can be in fourth jhana, and the next moment we say withdraw from fourth jhana, and they can hear, move, do things that you couldn't normally do in jhana. Because when you're in jhana, you're going to be very still. They can do that. So who's to say what you can really experience or not experience in fourth jhana? The other thing about what they tend to say is, jhana is not necessarily an absolute science, in the sense on paper it is, of course. But when you enter a state of samadhi, there's no one standing there saying, oh, you've now entered fourth jhana or third jhana or second jhana. In jhana, you can't think, you can't describe or think. So only afterwards you can say, well, based on what I just experienced, it was fourth jhana, third jhana. But who's to know? It's a personal thing. So Ajahn Chah used to say, perhaps the most useful way to use these states of samadhi is just to know, am I peaceful or am I not? When we say peaceful, we mean, is the mind beyond the five hindrances or not? That's the number one reflection you probably need on a daily basis. If you're not yet peaceful, we'll be looking into that. Why am I not peaceful? What are the hindrances bothering me, and how can I overcome them? And for most people, it's a very laborious kind of continuous practice. Sometimes you do well, sometimes not. So don't get discouraged if your mind is not particularly peaceful, but use that as a reflection. Why am I not peaceful? And also be able to still practice when you're not particularly peaceful. You have to be able to get to the point where you can meditate whether you're peaceful or not. Because a lot of people give up. As soon as they reckon they're not peaceful, they quit, they give up. They say, I can't meditate. So they never get beyond whatever the obstacles are. But if you get really skilled at entering jhana, fourth jhana, you'll be very skilled. These kind of questions will not come up, I don't think. You'll know for yourself, and you can talk to other people who also have attained fourth jhana and probably understand each other very well, as seems to be the case. Often the people who talk a lot about jhana, maybe they haven't experienced it, because they're talking about it more than experiencing it. To be honest, that's my observation. The people who really know it don't talk about it so much. But nevertheless, the descriptions are that in fourth jhana you're not listening to things and seeing things. Your senses cut off. But When you withdraw from fourth jhana, you can sense things. You enter what we call upajjhara samadhi, access concentration. But coming out of fourth jhana, the mind is very powerful, very pure from the practice of mindfulness, and so it's the best place to practice vipassana when you come out of fourth jhana. Anyone who attains fourth jhana will have the opportunity to reach nibbana very quickly, because the purity of mindfulness, the equanimity is so well developed. Then everything else that is a defilement, greed, anger and delusion, will be seen very quickly. If they're looking, it's not guaranteed, but if they're looking and practicing, contemplating the Four Noble Truths, then they will purify their mind very quickly coming out of fourth jhana. So it is something we're aiming for in practice. But I wouldn't, get too caught up in these levels of jhana, especially if you're new to the practice, because it can be as confusing as it is helpful.
Sadhu. Next question. Does Ajahn have advice for lay people when it comes to reflections on the repulsiveness of the human body? Even though some suttas, such as the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, has references to reflections on a body that has been dead for 3 days and is swollen, bloated, blue and festering, some say the Buddha only gave these reflections to practitioners who were overcome by passion, lust, and fascination with beauty in the body. Is this true, and does Ajahn have advice for when lay people should use these reflections on repulsiveness?
Well, as far as the sort of standard teaching you just described, say like the Buddha giving the object of meditation of contemplating the repulsiveness of the body to someone with a lot of lust, that's a very standard kind of teaching. But we weren't there, were we? We weren't there in the time of the Buddha. We don't know who the person was, all the different aspects of their personal practice and the background. So it's just a very general teaching that contemplation of the repulsiveness of the body is the best way to counter lust and sensual desire for the human body. So it's a general teaching, it's correct. But when we should apply it, when we should develop it, well, that partly depends on the person, their character, their particular karma, where they're at in their life. But what I would say is for lay people, you really are, you don't have to look very far to understand the repulsiveness of the body. It's there, right around us all the time. So you can also just practice opening your eyes, awakening to the truth on a daily basis, and you'll already start noticing that side of our experience. Just ask yourself, do you like cleaning the toilet in your home? Do you like cleaning the bath or the shower in your home? Most people I know, they don't like the actual action of cleaning. They do it because they want to clean home, and it's healthy and hygienic. But nobody likes it. Why not? Because it's full of dirt. You clean the toilet, it's smelly, it's full of urine and feces, it's smelly, it's unpleasant. We have to clean it for hygiene, but it's an unpleasant task because this human body is an unpleasant thing that produces a lot of excrement and urine. Why do we not like cleaning out the plug hole of our shower that's full of hair? Because it's human hair, when it goes into a plug hole, it's been there mixing with all kinds of other gunk for a long time, is unpleasant. These kind of very ordinary things you can contemplate every day. Just gently remind yourself, a human body produces a lot of unpleasant liquids, solids, stuff, smells, liquids, all kinds of stuff every day. You notice it. What we tend to do is just react, don't we? I don't like that, and move away or hide it. You go into a toilet and there's a smell, so you spray something to get rid of the smell and so on. You may still do that. The Buddha didn't say don't clean your toilet. The Buddha didn't say live with the repulsiveness of the body, but what he said is contemplate it. Before you spray to cover the smell, before you clean that bit of dirt, think about it, contemplate, oh, this is the human body, this is what it does, this is what it's like. When you're ill, your body often doesn't look very good, it doesn't smell very good when you're ill. It's another time where often you have to face the repulsiveness of the body. When you wash your clothes, maybe your clothes are stained. Just contemplate that as you're doing it. Oh, this is what happens. Your body stains clothes. On and on, you realize that actually what we call the asupa, or the repulsiveness of the human body, is all around us all the time. It would have to be, because we've all got a body. Sometimes it's other people's bodies, sometimes ourselves. And all you need to do is just start noticing, paying attention to the truth of things, rather than always trying to live in a fantasy world, or cover things up, hide things. As I said, you don't have to live with these repulsive things, but before you cover them up, before you clean things, before you turn away, just reflect, and you'll get a lot of insight that way. And maybe even sometimes you can't avoid seeing a dead body. Maybe your relative dies and you go to a funeral and there's a coffin there. Well, go and take a few moments to look at your relative who's lying in a coffin. Oh, that's what happens to a human body. For monks, we have dead animals in the forest we encounter regularly, so you spend some time contemplating, oh, the human body or an animal body decomposes, degenerates, goes back to the elements. That's another contemplation. The opportunity to contemplate these things is always with us. It's up to a wise person to see it as an opportunity to educate themselves, learn about life. Someone was telling me the other day they were in China and they went to the little monastery, not well known, where Master Huineng, the Master Huineng was, his body was kept, he was never cremated, and his body kind of mummified, dried out, and it's sitting there for people to go and worship. If you ever go to Thailand also, there's many teachers who were never cremated, they're just kept maybe in a glass case. You can go and bow to them and observe a human body that has been dead for a long time. What's it like? These are all opportunities to learn from your experience, but in a gentle way. You're not forcing it on yourself or other people. And the more peaceful you are, the more you'll be able to learn from these experiences, rather than just always react with aversion or fear. But you have to get to know yourself, what you can cope with, and sometimes you have to be brave and try things. But if it's making you very depressed or angry, well, contemplate something more pleasant, like the thought of loving kindness and compassion. That's okay as well. So you have to go at your own pace. Like so many things in life, you say you want to run a marathon, maybe you've never done long distance running before. Well, maybe you can't run a marathon at first. You just take up running 1 kilometer or 5 kilometers until you're better at it, and then maybe you can run a marathon. Meditation is the same. Before you take on too much, we'll just establish some basic mindfulness and understanding of the practice, and then grow from there. And when you're ready, then you'll be able to do more.
Sadhu Lumpur. Another question. Dear Ajahn, I've noticed that I sometimes have strange or unwanted thoughts that seem to arise out of nowhere, without me intending to think them. Why does this happen? Also, I often experience intense fear. How can I manage or overcome it? I've tried using meditation, but the thoughts still persist. Thank you.
Keep going, keep meditating. You're exactly the same as every other meditator. Every meditator I've ever met said they experience strange and unwanted thoughts coming out of nowhere. It's totally normal, so don't feel bad about it. Just accept it. The simple answer is just karma, old karma. You've thought stuff before, you've absorbed sense impressions since the day you were born. And some of this will come up, and often at unexpected moments. So even when you're very peaceful, just getting settled in your meditation, breathing in, breathing out, all good, peaceful, alert, bright, you can still have a really strange, unwanted thought pop into your mind because it's something that you attached to or gave importance to 20 years ago. So it could be a memory or just an impulse, a reaction to something. Who knows? But it's what we call old karma popping up. And part of the process of meditation is you're kind of purifying your karma. So you have to be ready to face, as I was saying earlier, you have to face up to suffering. Sometimes you have unpleasant, nasty thoughts, terrible thoughts, stupid thoughts, ridiculous thoughts, weird, strange thoughts. You'll get every kind of thought. The whole point is you're becoming more awake, more mindful, so you notice things. Before, you probably didn't even notice them. Now you are. Well, that's good. That's the good side. You can notice that there are such things as strange and unwanted random thoughts. All you have to do is establish mindfulness and maybe contemplate them as impermanent. They arise, they cease, and they're unlikely to cause you much further suffering if you do that. But be careful, because we can become fascinated with strange and unwanted thoughts, so we can react to them with fear, dislike. Maybe we can have an ideal in our mind that I should have no strange and unwanted thoughts, so when you have them, then you feel disappointed, and so on. We often react to our mental experience more than we need to. The important thing is establish mindfulness, know something and let it go, and see it as impermanent, let it go. Keep doing that, and you'll find that will help. And you can use that with fear as well. Sometimes fear comes up because there's an obvious threat or problem. Sometimes fear is, again, it's just an old bit of old karma, something you've been afraid of before, and the memory is triggered again. So you're sitting there in a totally safe situation, and fear can arise. It can happen. Try to establish mindfulness. So go to your meditation object. The Buddha said if your meditation won't calm the fear down, your reflection doesn't sort it out, help you let it go, think of the Buddha. If you need extra strength in your meditation, think of the Buddha. So when you think of the Buddha, most people who have faith, it will bring up many good qualities in your mind. So you get some patience to be with a difficult state of mind, such as fear, makes you feel more calm, relaxed, makes you think of all kinds of skillful thoughts that may help you to go beyond that fear, to quell the fear or have enough strength to watch it and let it go. Or even if there's a genuine threat, you're in a situation where you feel threatened or there's some threat to your safety, thinking of the Buddha can just help you to be calm enough to see what you need to do next. You might not always have a plan, but you can see, well, what should I do now? Should I just stay put, or should I run away, or should I do something? You may not be able to plan or predict it, but when you think of the Buddha, often your own intelligence starts to work better. You feel better, and then you can think through what you need to do. So thinking of the Buddha is a very good way to deal with fear. Being patient, being mindful, of course, that will also help.
Sadhu. Next question. Why do I cry during meditation?
Maybe you have to ask yourself that, because we cry for a number of different reasons. There's the crying of suffering, so sometimes remembering our past suffering triggers more crying and sadness, feeling sorry for ourselves or feeling compassion for ourselves. Sometimes thinking of other people who are suffering, we feel compassion and cry. Sometimes we cry with joy though. We are releasing suffering. As we meditate, our mind becomes more wholesome, mindfulness improves, we're thinking better, more skillful things perhaps. And so you get the tears of what we call piti, or joy, rapture. So as you have tears of rapture, arise, these are wholesome dhammas. This is a good thing, and it can be both mental and physical. Tears are a physical thing. It's because your mind is relaxing in a more refined, wholesome state, and even your body responds to that. So you may get tears is one aspect of joy. So you can have tears coming with the joy of Dhamma. And some Dhamma is very profound. Sometimes it's kind of weird. It can be seemingly sad and joyful at the same time. Because when you see suffering, that's sad, but also you may be seeing the way out of suffering at the same time. That's joyful. So, sadness and joy can come very close together in your mind, in your experience, one after the other. But generally, I think it's a good thing, and not always. I mean, you may have a real problem in your life, and as you meditate, you're thinking of it, so you're crying out of real desperation. I'm not saying it's always a good thing, but generally, tears are a good thing. It's a sign of the mind relaxing, seeing the Dhamma, seeing the truth of something, and letting go. But generally, it's a good thing.
Sadhu. Next question. I am, quote unquote, allergic to some unskillful behaviors from people, but I don't know how to release my allergic reaction when that happens. Can Ajahn please suggest a solution? Thank you.
I agree. I'm also allergic to many kinds of human behavior. I don't like people fighting. I don't like people getting drunk. I don't like being around them. I don't like people arguing and being around people who argue. I don't like people killing animals. And I don't like being around them either. So I'm the same. So sometimes you just get away from the situation. If you're having an allergic reaction, it depends how you define allergic. It could be actually a sign that your mind is in a more wholesome state, someone else is unwholesome, and the best thing is just move away or get away if you can. But of course, you can't always separate from other people, and you may also have to contemplate your own reaction to something, because maybe your reaction is not coming from a wholesome thing. It could come from something unwholesome. You could be conceited or arrogant in a situation. You may be looking down on someone, thinking you know better or you are better, and you're actually harboring certain attachments there, a sense of self, ego, conceit can be. Or it could be aversion, couldn't it? Sometimes we're averse to other people when they're not necessarily doing anything wrong or bad. It may be our own selfish desire, self-centeredness, and we don't want to be with anyone else. We don't like being around other people. Maybe other people, when other people are around, we have to behave well ourselves. Maybe normally we're not behaving so well, or we have to be responsible when other people are around. So when other people are around, we kind of react to them because they're actually making us see ourselves sometimes, seeing our own faults, or making us have to try harder when we want to be lazy or selfish. There'll be a number of reasons, I think. You have to look at what's going on. If you're caught into aversion, that's obviously a mental defilement. And that's something to be countered by loving kindness, compassion, tolerance, patience. So living and working and being with other people requires a lot of patience. You'll never find other people are always exactly to your liking. They may be good people, but they're other people from you. So they do things differently at different times and in different ways, and they behave slightly differently. So there's always going to be a little bit of friction. So sometimes you have to be very tolerant. You cultivate qualities that help you to be tolerant of others. So qualities like compassion, respect, patience, and so on. You develop these qualities for living in the world with other people. But if their behavior is really intolerable, it's very unwholesome, unskillful, well, then yes, you may have to get away from them, find ways to limit their behavior. Say it's your kid, say you have a kid and your kid is being very badly behaved, or maybe as a parent you might have to try and teach them, help them. So it depends on the situation, what the relationship with the people who you have this allergic reaction to is, what they're doing, how you're feeling. And you have to assess, am I acting from defilement, greed, anger, delusion, from attachment, or am I coming from a place of Dhamma? There'll be a difference depending on the situation.
Sadhu. Next question. For the past 13 years, I'm very much affected and conditioned by society and work values. However, I don't think it's right or beneficial for me. I'm not sure how to uncondition myself.
Come and live in the monastery. Easy. Become a monk or a nun. I don't know who you are, but that will probably be the straightforward way, isn't it? Get out of society, the money-making society, career path, and all of that. But perhaps you're not able to do that. It's just not practical, I understand that. So if you can't ordain, go to the monastery and practice the spiritual life for Nibbana, well, dedicate yourself to that within your situation as a layperson, with a job, with a family, whatever your particular situation is. You can still dedicate your mind and your practice to the Dhamma. Introduce the Dhamma more and more into your life. So, try to practice generosity, charity, kindness to others. Try to keep precepts, not to harm others through your speech, your actions. Learn meditation and keep cultivating the qualities that you gain through meditation, mindfulness, insight, and so on. This will definitely help you to change for the better as a human being. And you will start learning what you need to do to improve your mind as you go through life, whether as in a family or a workplace, whatever your situation is. You'll learn what you need to do by observing your mind as you meditate. You'll see where your suffering is coming from, where you're attaching, where you're getting caught into wrong views, wrong behaviors that bring you more stress, more suffering, and you can start changing. If you can't go to a monastery and become a monk or a nun, well, maybe take some time out just to do some retreats or temporary periods of retreat. That can help as well. Give you a new perspective on life, give you some rest, spiritual rest, and you just do what you can within your situation to improve your Dhamma practice. That would be my recommendation. So we call that becoming a monk or a nun in your heart. Even if on the outside you still have to work, have a family, do things, you can become a monk or a nun on the inside, in your heart.
Sadhu Lumpu. Next question. Dear Ajahn Kalyano, thanks for the insightful Dhamma talk. Now, I think this question is in reference to a family member. I am happy that we are able to keep to the 8 precepts for the second time on her 8th birthday this year. Maybe their daughter. How can I continue to encourage her to do the same? I told her this is the best gift you can offer to yourself, a noble gift, life after life, till your liberation, and also to repay the kindness on my sufferings day. There's nothing on earth more valuable than keeping to the precepts. Virtue is the highest gift. Is this the right view? I see myself clinging to the 8 precepts to be cultivated on my own suffering day, which I may refer to.
With very young children, I would just keep observing them. Like, it's a great thing, like you say, if they're willing to try the 8 precepts and you keep the 8 precepts with them, explain to them why they're doing it and how it will benefit them. You don't push it too much, too often, then it's a great thing. But you have to observe what's going on. If they really hate it, they find that you're being too strict with them, because the 8 precepts, most adults don't keep them, so let alone kids, they might not feel ready to do that. You have to observe the results, so you're not unwittingly pushing them away from the Buddha and the practice of the Dhamma. But if they're happy and they seem to be comfortable doing it and you're doing it with them as a friend, well, yeah, it can be a good thing. Maybe you pick a special day from time to time to do it. I wouldn't do it too often, but when there's a special occasion like the Buddha's birthday or somebody's birthday or some special day, you can do it, and you have to try and make it as enjoyable as you can for a kid, because a kid needs enjoyment, don't they, to do things. So I just be wary of pushing them too hard, because then that might push them away. But it's a very good thing if you can get them to, and certainly some children can. It's quite possible. I mean, 9 years old, you can already become a novice monk or a little nun. So some kids certainly can do this in the right environment with the right support, and in teachers they can certainly keep 8 precepts. So just see how you go, and do your best to let them know the value of keeping precepts, particularly the 5 precepts. Just keep explaining to them or reminding them why it's good, how it will help them, and ask them questions. When they keep the precepts for a day, at the end of the day you can say, did you keep your precepts today? And if they say yeah, you say, how do you feel about that? Do you like it? And so you're helping them learn what the value of the precepts are and how they contribute to happiness. So keep going. It's a good thing you're doing.
Sadhu. Another question. Dear Ajahn, thank you very much for the Dhamma talk. I have noticed that not showing signs of anger in certain situations may allow the abusers to continue their abuse, as they consider absence of anger, calmness and kindness as a sign of weakness. Can we use anger in a skillful way to protect ourselves from abusive people and to set boundaries? Thank you.
Well, I would rather use mindfulness and wisdom and patience to deal with angry and abusive people, because they're much more wholesome qualities that should give better results. The whole thing is, when you react with anger to someone, even though they may be hurting you, but when you react with anger, you tend to both harm yourself by bringing your mind to a coarser mental state, and then often making poor decisions and not following your emotion rather than wisdom. And you often have a bad effect on the other person, and maybe extend the whole thing, make it last longer, make it worse than it needs to be. But not acting in anger doesn't mean to say you don't act at all. Calmness doesn't mean passivity or apathy. It just means maybe when you have to act, you try to act firmly, directly perhaps. Maybe you even have to show someone that there are consequences to their bad behavior if that's what they're doing. It's not that there are no consequences, but you act without anger, you'll probably find you get a better solution. Because say you go to a court of law, you've got 2 people, one person has harmed the other, and they're in a court of law. If the judge starts getting angry, well, no one's going to listen to the judge. The judge has to speak calmly, but they may still give consequences and give some kind of punishment or whatever to the one who's done wrong. It's a bit like that, but whether it's a school teacher with a naughty kid, or a parent with a naughty kid, or a bully at work who you have to get HR or somebody, the supervisor, to talk to. There are going to be ways and means that you can use to protect yourself or get some rectification if someone is behaving badly. But when you start acting out of anger, you tend to weaken your case. Nobody likes an angry person. Even when you think you're right, someone has harmed you. When you act in anger, often people, that's what they remember. They say, oh, she's angry, he's angry. And that weakens your case. If you can speak and act without anger, you may have to act firmly, decisively, sure. But if you can act without anger, you'll probably find more people support you, more people listen to you, more people will follow along, whatever the problem is.
Sadhu. Next question. Recently, my loved one was unwell. Unknowingly, seeing him suffer made me agitated and worried. When I talked to the doctor to express his needs, I became angry and upset. It dawned on me the emotions on seeing my loved one suffer bring about my suffering and losing my mindfulness. How can I manage myself upon seeing my loved one suffer?
Well, the Buddhist response would be to develop what we call equanimity, balance, calmness of mind in the face of suffering. So in this case, it's your loved one suffering. So you have to ask yourself, when you get angry, how is that helping the situation? Doesn't help you, doesn't help the doctor, doesn't help your loved one. So keep thinking it through. If your loved one is suffering, ill, whatever, there's reasons for this, there's causes for this. Maybe it's just the fact that they're getting old, or maybe they actually have some illness, maybe it's karma, some kind of karma. Getting angry is not going to cure anything. It's not going to help you or them. It's not going to encourage the doctor to do a good job if you're getting angry and upset with them. So, you have to understand yourself, obviously, have compassion for yourself, why you're getting angry, but you have to work with this. Maybe when you're angry, move away. Don't talk to the doctor when you're angry. Calm down first, then go back and talk to them. Don't talk to your loved one with anger. It's not going to make them feel better. Maybe it will make them feel worse because they feel they're the cause of your anger. And then you start looking at the relationship to this anger and your love for that person. Why do you get angry? It's because you love them. You want them to be happy. You want them to be healthy. And they're not. So your mind is not accepting that truth. That's why you need the equanimity. Sometimes we just have to accept things that are difficult to accept. Illness, who can fight with illness? If it's happened, what we need to do is care, of course, care for the person, get them treatment, but part of that care and that treatment is also keeping a good mental atmosphere around them, keeping calm and peaceful ourselves, giving them loving kindness and support. This is as important as the doctor's work with medicine and treatment as well. So try and see it's something you've got to take responsibility for and work with. It's easy to say, I should be angry because I love them and they're suffering, but often we're deluded. It's the wrong response. It's only making things worse. So you have to investigate that, see where you can let go of some of the anger, and then you actually probably find you can deal with the whole situation better and be more service to your loved one.
Sadhu Luang Por. So we have about maybe 5 more questions to go. Dear Ajahn, I feel that at this point of my practice, my mind feels very uninspired and low in faith. I find it very difficult to put in the effort to practice consistently. Please kindly advise. Thank you.
Same answer as before. Well, if you can, get to a monastery. If you can't go and ordain, then maybe go on a retreat. That will help. If you can't get to a monastery to stay, well, go and visit temporarily. At least this is why we often do dana with Sangha, because it brings us closer to the Dhamma. You hear the Dhamma, you meet with people practicing, and that can uplift you. If you can't get to a physical place where people practice the Dhamma, well, associate with people online, in books, online, things like this, Zoom sessions. These are all good start. Another thing to reflect on is the impermanence of life. We're not here forever, even though, yes, we get bored, fed up, face obstacles, become uninspired. These all happen. We go through these phases. We're not here forever. We still need to practice. One day we're going to die, and we don't know when we're going to die. So while you have this chance, take it. Don't let your life slip by without practicing the Dhamma. Now that you've come in contact with the Dhamma, you have previously had faith, go back to your original inspiration, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the teachings. Go back to that and try and re-establish your inspiration to practice, because time is running out. We don't know how long we've got. Keep going. Don't give up. Ajahn Chah used to say, whatever happens, however bad you feel, however bad it is, if you don't give up, you don't stop, you're going to gain some good things from your practice. So try and keep that trust. If Ajahn Chah says it, if the Buddha says it, these are the wisest sort of people the world has known. Just trust in their words and keep going. Don't doubt it, just keep going. Maybe you could add Ajahn Kalyano to the list. Ajahn Kalyano says, keep going. If you keep practicing, good things are going to come from it. So you add my name to the list.
Sadhu. Next question. Dear Ajahn, sometimes sufferings come one after the other, and they're very hard to deal with, like separation from loved ones or closeness to death. They seem far from happy occasions, and when there's no mindfulness, it is difficult to know how to take them as teachings. When one is overwhelmed by big sufferings, what should we remember or hold on to help us deal with them and have a calmer mind later to actually learn from them?
Well, the Buddha pointed out that to really go beyond suffering, you have to know suffering from a place of, like you say, clarity, calmness. So that's one of our priorities in the practice, always try to come back to a place of calm, clarity of mind, so that we can contemplate and understand things better. That also comes from patience, because sometimes, like you say, you're just overwhelmed with emotion. If someone dies or there's some big suffering in your life, yeah, it can be overwhelming, but be very patient so that you can get to that point where you can contemplate what's going on. Everyone's been through some kind of suffering, bigger or smaller, and probably there's more suffering for all of us to experience in the future as well. It's just part of life. So try to just accept that. Oh yeah, suffering comes along, yeah. But you don't have to always be kind of like a victim or a prey to it. Try to keep contemplating and be patient and work through it, and you realize, well, you come out of the other side of suffering, don't you? We've all been through suffering before. It arose, it passed away. There may be more suffering in the future, but it arises, it passes away. That's what suffering does. Once you know that, then it kind of takes the sting out of it. You may not be able to avoid suffering. You can't avoid the death of a loved one or your own physical aging and sickness and ultimate death. You can't avoid these things, but you can understand them. It's this understanding or insight that helps take the sting out of suffering and helps you just to keep a wholesome state of mind. What the Buddha wanted us to do was keep making merit through either dana, sila or bhavana, because merit uplifts you, raises your mind up through the sufferings of life. So, my comparison is like you've got a life vest, you're floating in the ocean of life, full of suffering, the ocean's full of, storms and big waves and problems, but you've got your life vest, which is the goodness of the merit that you make. It keeps you afloat through the suffering of life. So keep making merit, keep helping people, keep offering dana, keep keeping the precepts, keep meditating, listening to the Dhamma, keep chanting if you find chanting helpful. All the things that are making merit, you keep doing it, and it will help you get through the sufferings of life.
Sadhu Lumpur. Another question. Dear Ajahn, my mum seems to be uncomfortable with me visiting the temple every weekend, though I really enjoy doing so. How can I handle this situation? She believes I should be spending my time on other activities instead.
Making babies, having families, cooking food. It's probably what all mothers want, isn't it? Yeah, my mum wasn't too happy me going to the temple either, but she didn't stop me, so I appreciate that. She even lent me her car to drive to the temple. So good on her. And eventually, I won her over by just practicing what the Buddha taught until she couldn't deny it was good for me. And every mother loves their offspring. Every mother wants their child to be happy. So if you can prove through your practice that you're becoming happier, more peaceful, wiser, have more goodness in you through your practice, in the end your mum will have to agree it's not a bad thing. But that takes time, so you need the patience to go through her doubts, her questioning, her wishes for other things. It'll take some time, but the quicker you can achieve something through your practice, the more sincere you are in your practice, the more peace and happiness and understanding you gain, the quicker she will benefit and the quicker she'll turn around and see it as a good thing. So when you do make merit, you meditate, you offer dana, you do the things you do at temples, always share the merit with your parents. Always. Just keep thinking of them and do it for them, out of gratitude for them, until one day they will agree. They say, oh, this is a good thing.
Sadhu. Another question. Dear Ajahn, similarly to the previous question, I too have unwholesome and disrespectful thoughts towards some Sangha teachers like yourself. It wasn't intentional. It makes me feel bad and guilty for having some thoughts. Usually I will come back to my breathing and not give the thoughts any attention. Will I be making any bad karma in this too? In a way, it's mental karma. Is this right?
Now what you have to ask yourself, watch your mind, how strongly you're attaching or identifying with the thoughts. If they just pop up once and then you quickly let them go, maybe not much karma is made. But if they keep reoccurring and you sort of agree with them, maybe you're starting to make bad karma. So when you practice metta meditation, which you should be doing every day, you always start with the Ajahn. If you're in this monastery, it's Ajahn Kalyano first. Because often it's the Dhamma teacher who tells you the things you need to hear, but then your kilesas, your cravings and attachments don't want to hear. So that's often who takes the first of your anger. Is when you're a kid, it's your parents. When you practice the Dhamma, it will be the teacher. They have to absorb a lot of your anger because they're telling you to meditate when you don't want to. They're telling you to be kind when you don't want to be kind. They're telling you to forgive when you don't want to forgive. They're telling you to be mindful when you're not mindful. They keep telling you things you don't want to do and don't like and don't agree with. So you'll get angry with them. So you need to practice a lot of metta for your teachers. And as far as other teachers, sometimes we hear gossip or rumors about some teacher being bad or wrong. It may be true, maybe not. Don't jump to conclusions. What you hear may be not correct. Unless you've seen something with your own eyes or heard it with your own ears, don't rush to believe what other people say. And even if you have seen it with your own eyes, well, teachers are human beings like anyone else. Sometimes you have to forgive them. Doesn't mean to say you agree if you see someone or hear someone doing something or saying something wrong. Okay, you don't have to agree, but if you're reacting with anger, that's your defilement, not the teacher's defilement, and you have to be clear in this. So Dhamma teachers can stimulate anger in us. That's our job to let go of, pacify, tame our own mind. That's our job, not the teacher's job. But just like you say, keep practicing mindfulness, go back to the breathing, and I'm sure you can work through this.
Sadhu. Next question. Dear Ajahn, I'm going on a pilgrimage to India next week. Can you please give some advice on how to make the most of the trip and raise faith to further my practice?
Well, some disciplined practice every day on this trip would be good. So every day do some puja, chanting, worshipping, meditation. Every day, morning, evening. Even if you're sitting on a bus or an aeroplane, you can do some meditation. You can recite verses of Dhamma you've heard or recite chants that you know. Make the whole thing into like you say, a pilgrimage of worship for the Buddha and recollecting the Dhamma and furthering your practice. Try not to go with the mind of a tourist. You go to India and you're just walking around and looking, oh, this is nice, this is interesting, that's not nice, or try this food, try this thing, go shopping here. Try not to go like with the mind of a tourist, go with the mind of a disciple of the Buddha. You're going to worship the Buddha, follow the Buddha's teachings, keep the precepts, be patient with any difficulties. So make it into a whole, kind of like a retreat. It's like a retreat, except for you're moving through India, I assume. And so you have some regular Dhamma practice of meditation, chanting, teaching, and or listening to teaching, and so on.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next question. Thanks, Ajahn, for your guidance on keeping the 8 precepts. I watched the Jataka stories together with my daughter instead of listening to a Dhamma talk with her during the observance day. Cultivating short 10 minutes of sitting and walking, bringing her to offer Sangha, Dana, and chanting together. I will try to incorporate her favorite chant in the future, maybe reading Dhamma books together too. Is there anything I can make the observance of 8 precepts interesting for children? Thanks a lot. Wishing you well always.
Well, it sounds like you're doing that already. Just keep it up. Like you say, sometimes kids need to hear Dhamma stories, reading stories, or watching little Dhamma movies. That can be good. If you're offering dana to Sangha, if you're lucky enough you can, monks or Sangha or nuns near you, well, they can be involved in making some nice little dish or treat to offer to the Sangha. And you say, well, you want the monks to enjoy this food just as you like to enjoy food yourself. You want other people to enjoy this food, so you put effort into making some dana. If they can't make food, maybe you can go to the meditation center or the monastery, the temple, and do an act of dana, help clean the toilets or sweep the yard or do something together, and you explain about what you're doing and why. As a parent, you just try to give them some explanation so they know why they're doing it. That will help. And just see if you can have a variety of activities so they're not just doing one thing all day. They're not going to be able to sit and meditate all day. But maybe they can do some different Dhamma activities like reading, listening to a talk, reading a book, doing some chores, offering some food, and so on. You just try and make it enjoyable as you can.
Sadhu. Dear Ajahn, I plan to stay in the monastery for 3 weeks during my winter holiday, but Chinese New Year is within the holiday period. I don't know how to tell my father that I won't be with them for Chinese New Year. Also, I don't want to lie. What should I say to them?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend lying, because if you're going to practice the Dhamma, you're trying to keep precepts. So if you can, explain to your dad what you're doing and why. If you can in any way make it up to him, attending a family event before you go to the monastery or after you come back, just see what you can do that might be in ways of a compromise, just to show you care. You'll probably never completely satisfy them, though. If you really miss Chinese New Year, they'll probably always complain, grumble. but you probably have to assess how serious are they in their complaints. If it's just small grumblings and complaints, well, maybe you can get away with it. If it's something bigger, well, you have to think what you can do to placate them, and certainly do lots of meditation for your family members and share merits with them every day. And so you can both tell them that that's what you've done, and also genuinely that's what you have in your heart. You share merits or spread metta to them, so that you're sure you're not avoiding a Chinese New Year gathering out of aversion or disrespect. You're simply, and you're not being ungrateful, so you might have to explain some of this, but you're practicing to make yourself a better person, to honor your parents and express your gratitude to your parents. See how you can put that across to them.
Sadhu Luang Por. That was the last question.
A lot of questions tonight, so maybe we'll leave it there. Can always join a future session if there's any questions left. We can talk about them another time. But for now, that's the end of the session, and we wish you well until next time. And next week we're celebrating 24 years of the monastery since the land was first offered to build this monastery. So it'll just be another Zoom session, I think, but you could say a special 24th anniversary Zoom session.
Sadhu, sadhu.